Chicago, Illinois, the capital of the American Midwest, a gritty metropolis whose blue-collar moxie is matched only by its civic pride.
I've traveled all over the world. Every time I come back, I sing Sweet Home Chicago.
But in March of 2007, the city of broad shoulders was dealt a body blow when a beloved resident suddenly disappeared.
She was so family-oriented, she would never pack up and leave.
The search for the truth would quickly morph into a full-blown murder mystery. And along the way, uncover a bizarre story of sex, drugs, and true love gone horribly awry.
It was torture.
Everybody knows the truth. The only people who don't is the jury.
You need to tell us what happened that night, and you need to get your story straight.
Behind closed doors, beyond the headlines, every city has a dark side. March 17th, 2007. DuPage County Sheriff's Deputy Brian Barkalow receives a call from detectives. They are in the midst of investigating a possible homicide, and they need him to check out a residence in the quiet Chicago suburb of Villa Park.
They were going to have me start to do a cursory search around the residence and property that could point them in a direction or give them some information as to what had happened.
In the garage, Barkalow discovers a vintage car. The doors are open, but the trunk is locked. Barkalow climbs into the back seat and removes a speaker in order to get a look inside the trunk.
I peered through the hole and unfortunately found a female body inside the trunk.
The woman's head is covered in a plastic bag. She's also been bound and gagged.
Her hands have been duct taped behind her back and her feet duct taped together and duct tape around her neck and head.
In an instant, this gruesome discovery has made the residence in Villa Park a crime scene, the likes of which the Chicago suburbs have never seen. Metropolitan Chicago, known to locals as Chicagoland. It's got the pace of New York, the sprawl of LA, and the no-nonsense attitude of a Lake Michigan dock worker.
There's still that Midwestern thing, but also there's a toughness, really solid and grounded values.
It's a city where loyalties run deep, especially when it comes to the neighborhood you call home. Every Chicago neighborhood has its own flair and its own heritage.
There's a lot of diversity, if nothing else. The neighborhoods vary not only from neighborhood to neighborhood, from sometimes even block to block. And each neighborhood is its own microcosm of activity.
It started when a wave of immigrants flowed into the city to help rebuild it after the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Each ethnic group staked a claim to a different hood, most of them in the city's working-class South Side.
Name the nationality, it's here. You know, there's Italians, Mexicans, Polish, Arabian. It's a great place.
The Windy City is eclectic, but it's also starkly divided between the blue-collar South Side and the well-to-do suburbs of the North. And though they may not admit it, most of the doctors, lawyers, and uber-yuppie bond traders who populate the northern burbs would prefer not to mingle with the unwashed masses south of downtown. As for Southsiders, well, they think those North Side sissies wouldn't last a minute on their turf. Though the cultural boundaries have blurred a bit over the years, the North and South Sides remain largely divided over matters of everything from neighborhood pride to net worth to their favorite baseball team.
Sox fans, they're drinking beer, and the Cubs fans eating quiche. They really hate each other. And we have had some fisticuffs in the bar when the Sox and the Cubs are playing.
It's amazing to me that people that move here very quickly adopt that psychology of South Side, North Side, whether it's about the Cubs or the Sox, or whether it's about living North or South.
One Chicago native who didn't take much stock in the city's whole north-south divide was Becky Klien. Beautiful and good-natured, Becky grew up in the Streamwood community, the most quintessential of North Side suburbs.
In high school, she was the cheerleader. They had all the cheerleader popular girl friends.
But being one of the cool kids didn't keep Becky from making friends from all rungs of Chicago's social ladder.
She didn't think of herself. She thought of everybody else and everyone else's needs and how she could make people happy, how she could make their lives better.
Becky's desire to help people led her to a degree in recreational therapy and a well-paying job with a company that provided assistance to the disabled.
Even when she was little, I mean, she would just always wanted to help people. So I think it just carried on to her adult life.
My sister, she could find every lost puppy in the world and she was gonna fix them. She was a fixer.
And when Becky met 19-year-old Nicole Abu Sharif, she found her next project. Raised in one of the South Side's toughest neighborhoods, Nicole had recently started working for Becky. An opportunity Becky hoped would help Nicole escape her troubled South Side past.
She was coming out of a very bad situation in terms of having been previously affiliated with a gang and trying to get out of that. And Becky was trying to be helpful to her, take care of her, nurture her the way she did everyone.
But it wasn't just Nicole who was in need of a little TLC. Becky had recently broken off an engagement to her long-term boyfriend, and she found a kindred spirit in Nicole.
They looked out for each other. You could not go anywhere without them together.
Ultimately, the two became more than just friends and began living together in a cozy house on the South Side.
I don't know if I ever became totally comfortable with her lifestyle, but then again, what's the important thing? It's how she feels. I accepted it for Becky.
As Becky and Nicole's relationship blossomed, those around them accepted and even envied the couple.
Married couples around here would be jealous, honestly, to look at them too, because they couldn't deny it. They were absolutely happy.
Eventually, Becky's parents came to see Nicole as a member of their family.
She came over on Tuesday nights for dinner. We took the family to Disney World one year. She was with us. She became a small part of the family.
8 years together, and Becky and Nicole's life seemed picture perfect. Until Nicole injured herself in a freak accident.
She fell at work and she was laid up for 2 months or 3 months.
After months of recuperation, countless prescription pain meds, and invasive back surgery, Nicole still hadn't fully recovered, and now found herself struggling with a dependence on painkillers. She wound up losing her job.
She was limited to like 10, 15 pounds at one time that you could not pick up at work, and all of a sudden they had to let her go.
But losing her job was nothing compared to the news Nicole's doctor reportedly delivered later that year.
She told us she had cancer. She was going for treatments to see the doctor.
As always, Becky offered Nicole her unwavering love and support. In the summer of 2006, they left their South Side digs and purchased a home in Villa Park, one of DuPage County's most charming neighborhoods.
Villa Park is where you go when you're 35, and you found your partner and you're settled down in life. Boys Town is where you play, Villa Park is where you live.
By 2007, life in Villa Park was so great that Becky and Nicole had agreed to host a birthday party for Becky's nephew. The party was scheduled for St. Patrick's Day. So on the night of March 15th, Becky's sister Melanie came over to help her decorate.
So we were doing all the setup for the kids' party, did the cooking, got things ready for Saturday, cleaned the house, and just did a lot of party preparation, party favors, all that kind of stuff.
After setting everything up, Becky and her sister Melanie grabbed a quick bite to eat. Then Melanie headed home.
When I left her that night, everything was normal. She was going in the shower, she was going in bed because she had to work at 6 o'clock or 6:30 the next morning.
Later that evening, Melanie called Becky to go over a few last-minute party details. But Becky didn't answer. The next morning, Melanie tried her again.
I called her the next morning and again went to voicemail.
Shortly after Becky's sister tried to reach her, Nicole received a phone call from Becky's boss.
Nicole had said Becky got up that morning to go to work, gave her a kiss goodbye, and left. Later, she got a call from Becky's boss saying Becky never showed up for work.
After hanging up with Becky's boss, Nicole immediately reached out to Becky's parents.
We get a call from Nicole that Becky's missing. Marilyn called me at work. I immediately left and went down to Villa Park.
As Becky's father raced over to the house, Nicole began searching the neighborhood for any sign of her partner. It wasn't long before Nicole made a telling discovery, one that would link her and Becky to the body in that Villa Park garage and spark an investigation that, before it was over, would pit North Side against South, city dwellers against suburbanites, and an innocent victim against a trio of suspects. March is normally a cold, quiet time of year in Chicago. The contentious relationship between Chicago's north and south sides reaches a sort of détente. And with opening day for the North Side Cubs and South Side White Sox still a few weeks away, the bad blood between the fans has even cooled off. But in March of 2007, a bizarre discovery in the tranquil suburb of Villa Park was about to heat those long simmering tensions back to a rolling boil. It started shortly after it was revealed that local resident Becky Klien had failed to show up for work that morning. Becky's lover, Nicole Abou-Sharif, notified Becky's family before setting out across Villa Park in search of her partner.
Nicole said that she was going to walk the neighborhood and talk to people.
Less than a block from their house, Nicole came across Becky's work van.
Right around the corner, the van was parked. The van was open and Becky's work stuff and purse were in the car.
There was, however, no sign of Becky. Nicole immediately notified Becky's family.
Initially, I was thinking that somebody maybe must have dragged her out of her car and took her somewhere because she would not just run away.
After speaking with Becky's family, Nicole talked to the police, who instructed Nicole to drive Becky's van back home, where they'd meet her in a few minutes. Not long after the cops arrived, friends and family started showing up and began to form a search party.
People started showing up at her house. It was our friends, it was our family, it was Becky's friends, all trying to help.
It wasn't long before the whole house was filled with family, friends, and then the police looking for Becky.
My dad is a very take charge kind of person, especially in an emergent situation like this, and he was the one saying, call this person, let's get flyers out.
By nightfall, the search party had canvassed the entire Villa Park community. But there was still no sign of Becky. Desperate for answers, Jeff Klien reached out to several Chicago TV stations.
We wanted to get it out to the public that please help us. Becky's gone.
By 11 that night, hundreds of thousands of Chicagoland residents had seen Becky Klien's smiling face looking back at them from their TV screens. But for all the coverage, it yielded not one credible lead.
If we're given information as to possibly this happened or possibly that happened, or she may be here, or she may be there, you know, we're gonna have to try to tie up all those loose ends, whether we find her or not.
So the following morning, while droves of Chicagoland residents gathered downtown for the raucous St. Patrick's Day parade, nearly 100 more took to the streets in Villa Park, still searching for any sign of Becky.
Her neighbors that we had never even met came to the door and said, can I help you with flyers? Can we go to other houses? This shouldn't happen in our neighborhood.
As locals searched the streets of Villa Park, police were beginning to wonder if Becky might not want to be found.
Adults get up and leave their life sometimes, and adults give up and say, I'm gonna move somewhere else, or I'm not gonna be with you anymore.
According to friends and family, the possibility of Becky running away was zero.
She was so family-oriented, she would never pack up and leave. And if she did, she would come to my house or my parents' house. Like if something happened, if they got in a fight or whatever.
Police needed to cement the timeline of Becky's activities the night of her disappearance. For that, they turned to Becky's partner, Nicole. Nicole told investigators that she'd been at home, nursing her aching back and watching TV, while Becky and her sister prepped for the birthday party. According to Nicole, after Becky and Melanie ate dinner, Nicole fell asleep on the couch. She awoke early the next morning, just as Becky was heading off to work.
She kissed her goodbye in the morning, went to go to work, and she was later contacted that day from Rebecca's work and said she never showed up.
To police, it was clear that Becky's disappearance was taking a heavy emotional toll on Nicole.
When Becky left that morning, Becky was wearing one of Nicole's sweaters or fleeces, and she was teasing her that morning and making fun of Becky, saying that she was a clothes stealer or a sweater thief. It brought a tear to her eye to reminisce about this touching moment.
Nicole's story did more than move her to tears. It also seemed to gel with Becky's sister's version of events. And when coupled with the discovery of Becky's abandoned work van, it appeared to paint a clear picture of when and how Becky disappeared, at least as far as Becky's family was concerned.
At that point, I just thought maybe somebody kidnapped her or she fell and hurt herself. That would be the only thing that could have happened because she would not just run away.
Had Becky been kidnapped? Or was she on the run? If so, what was she running from? As the cold night air rolled in from Lake Michigan and the St. Paddy's Day revelry tapered off downtown, the answer to those questions seemed more remote than ever. Saturday, March 17th, 2007. It had been more than 24 hours since Chicago area resident Becky Klien had disappeared. Despite the efforts of police, as well as droves of volunteers, the search for Becky was going nowhere. But just after noon, detectives decided that they wanted to take another look around the house in hopes of finding anything that might shed some light on Becky's disappearance. Working his way through the home, Deputy Brian Barkalow eventually came to the garage where Nicole kept her prized possession, a '66 Ford Mustang. Nicole told detectives she no longer had a key to the trunk, but they were welcome to look inside the vehicle.
Detectives really wanted to rule that out. The Mustang was unlocked, went into the back seat. I removed the rear speaker out of the back deck lid behind the rear seats, and using a flashlight, peered through the hole.
From Deputy Barkalow's vantage point, it appeared there was something large in the trunk, but he couldn't say for sure what it was.
The trunk space is small. When I first looked through the speaker hole, at first it was hard to tell what exactly we had.
But as Barkalow's eyes adjusted to the darkness of the trunk, he realized what he had discovered.
I was able to tell from the shape of her body that it was a female.
It also appeared the woman had a plastic bag over her head. But that wasn't all.
Her hands had been duct taped behind her back, and her feet duct taped together, duct tape around her neck and head.
With the help of his fellow officers, Deputy Barkalow was able to open the trunk and remove the bag from the victim's head. The woman in the trunk was Becky Klien.
I don't even know if I can put it into words. You just break down. I mean, we just stood there and cried. It was just unbelievable.
You always hear the expression, you want to go before your kids do. There's a reason for that expression.
For investigators, this missing persons case had just become a homicide investigation.
We're not looking for somebody that walked away from their life. Now this is a death, and a highly suspicious one at that.
They delivered Becky's body to the coroner for a full examination. They cordoned off the house and began dusting for fingerprints. They also collected some plastic bags and a roll of duct tape that seemed to be a match for the kind used to bind and gag Becky Klien. After that, detectives turned their attention to the owner of the '66 Mustang, Nicole Abu Sharif. They asked Nicole if she could meet them down at the station and answer some questions about the night before Becky disappeared. Though she seemed distraught over Becky's death, Nicole obliged. But once the interview began, Nicole became increasingly aloof.
7:20 or 7:30 is approximately Becky's sister leaves.
Right.
Correct? What were you doing while Becky's sister was there?
I was laying there watching TV. I was locked out. Scenery kind of thing. Sat on the couch and they had dinner and like whatever.
Up to that point, police had viewed Nicole as little more than a grieving spouse. But her seemingly callous attitude, coupled with the fact that Becky's body had been found in the trunk of her car, made Nicole their new prime suspect. But no matter how hard detectives pressed, Nicole maintained that the last time she saw Becky was when she kissed her goodbye on Friday morning.
The police are asking her, "Did you ever go in the garage that night?" "No, I didn't." "Are you sure you didn't go in the garage with Becky that night?" "No, I didn't."
Investigators were having a hard time believing Nicole. They also assumed an autopsy would reveal signs of a struggle, or that Becky had suffered some sort of blunt force trauma before being bound and gagged. But the results of the autopsy only deepened the mystery surrounding Becky's death.
The autopsy found that there was no trauma to Becky's body. There was no struggle.
Nor were there any chemical irregularities in Becky's blood work. The autopsy did identify the contents of Becky's stomach, which placed her approximate time of death at 7:45 p.m.
They had chicken, green beans, and potatoes, and that was at about 6:20. Based on the forensic pathologist finding this undigested food in the stomach, the time of death was about an hour after. So when Melanie left at about 7:20, Becky was probably dead, certainly within an hour of her leaving.
When added all together, the autopsy suggested that Becky would have to have been fully conscious at the time she was bound, gagged, and placed in the trunk of the car, and without putting up a fight. Considering Nicole had a bad back that prohibited her from lifting anything heavier than a sack of groceries, let alone a full-grown woman, it didn't add up.
Nicole was about 40 pounds lighter and several inches shorter than Becky.
My daughter, she can't pick up anything. There's no way. No way possible that Nicole would even have that in her.
With the physical evidence still being processed, detectives found themselves in a waiting game. By that time, news of Becky's death had made its way all across suburban Chicago.
They had never had any violence like something like that in their neighborhood ever before. You never expect that something bad like this is going to happen. So when it does, it's a total shock.
But just as folks in the burbs were coming to grips with what happened, another, even more sinister hypothesis about the crime emerged, along with two new suspects whose strange ties to Becky and Nicole would only deepen the mystery. In the Tony, Chicago suburb of Villa Park, investigators had recently found the body of Becky Klien, bound, gagged, and stuffed into the trunk of her girlfriend Nicole Abu Sharif's vintage '66 Mustang. Nicole was the obvious first suspect, but her bad back and slight build, coupled with an inconclusive autopsy, raised doubts about her involvement.
How did it happen? It just doesn't make sense.
Within Chicago's gay and lesbian community, there were some who believed Becky might have been targeted for a much different reason.
There was concern that perhaps Becky had been targeted because of her sexual orientation.
In a city where cultural differences are often stark, it was a theory law enforcement was willing to entertain.
race issues, sexual orientation issues. There are a lot of different things that come into play, and you just have to just treat everybody the same and solve the crime.
That open-minded approach led investigators to question Becky and Nicole's neighbors, several of whom remembered seeing 2 different vehicles, a truck and a van, parked in the driveway the night of the murder. Nobody knew who the driver of the van was, but one neighbor was positive the truck belonged to Nicole and Becky's friend, 19-year-old Rose Sodaro.
The guy remembered that the girl's name, who owned the truck, was named Rose because he had met this Rose one prior time.
Rose was at numerous parties, barbecues. She had spent the night at Becky's and Nicole's house a number of times.
Nicole introduced me to Becky, and she was extremely courteous, very nice. She just had a smile on her face.
Investigators decided to take a closer look at the couple's friendship with Rose Sodaro. It turns out Rose was more than just a good friend, at least as far as Nicole was concerned.
She had been in a relationship with Rose for a couple of months, just telling Becky that she was just a friend.
If Nicole and Rose were lovers, was it possible the 2 women conspired to murder Becky in order to be together? Or could Rose have killed Becky so she could have Nicole all to herself? Investigators in Villa Park brought Rose Sodaro in for questioning. Though she was initially reluctant to admit it, Rose eventually confessed to being Nicole's lover. The 2 women met on MySpace, where Rose fell hard for Nicole.
I've always dated men before I met Nicole, and I found myself a little more attracted to girls while I'm away at college, experimental times.
But it soon became clear to investigators that the Nicole Rose Sodaro had fallen for wasn't the same one everyone else knew.
Everything that she thought she knew about Nicole was a lie. Everything.
She made up this fantasy about being a New York fireman, and she created fake newspaper articles about her saving people's lives.
She told me this one story about, I was on the edge of a bridge and I saved somebody here, and you should have been there at ground zero. It was amazing. It was scary.
It wasn't just her occupation Nicole had been lying about.
She said she was suffering from this deadly liver cancer, but then when it suited her, she would say she went and got a shot from a doctor and was completely cured. She would just elaborate with all these things.
Which begged the question, if Nicole was capable of duping Rose Sodaro into believing she was a heroic, cancer-surviving firefighter, was she also capable of convincing Rose to commit murder? Detectives wanted Rose to explain what exactly she was doing at Becky and Nicole's house the night Becky died.
Her car was there that night. Yeah, she was a suspect.
According to Rose, shortly after 8:15, Nicole called and asked her to meet her at a South Side bar and grill. Shortly after 9 o'clock, Nicole showed up and began drinking heavily.
She seemed a little drunk, so I reluctantly said, okay, fine, I'll drive you home.
Rose gave her a ride back to the house in Villa Park, parking her truck in the driveway.
They got home to the Villa Park residence about 3 in the morning, and Rose spent the night.
But before going to bed, Rose noticed something in Nicole's room that took her by surprise.
She sees in Nicole's bedroom a gun, and she was scared by the fact that she saw a gun.
She gave me the most chilling and creepy look. It was just this smirk on her face. And she said, don't worry about it, and just chuckled and put it away by the nightstand.
But that wasn't all. Rose told police that when she got home the following day, she received a bizarre phone call from Nicole, telling Rose that should she be contacted by the police, she was to deny ever having met her.
She's like, if you get pulled over by any chance, don't tell the cops you know me. You don't know me at all. You weren't here yesterday. You don't have a MySpace. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, it's nothing. I don't want to concern you with it.
Rose's statement was a huge revelation. Not only did it suggest that Nicole was trying to hide something from law enforcement, but if Rose was telling the truth about the handgun, then Nicole could have used it to coerce Becky into the trunk of her Mustang without having to resort to physical violence.
Nicole hold her at gunpoint long enough that she's able to push her in the trunk. Hands duct tape behind her back, put a bag over her head, duct tape it secure. Would have been simple enough.
Perhaps, but Rose Sodaro's story didn't explain one crucial piece of evidence. The fact that a third vehicle, an unidentified van, was seen in Becky and Nicole's driveway the night of the murder.
We don't know who this is, but boy, there's sure a lot of loose ends here.
Investigators hoped Nicole and Becky's cell phone records might shed some light on what transpired. In digging into both women's phone records, police discovered a flurry of calls made to both women the night of the murder. Calls made by a man named Robert Edwards. Over the next few days, investigators questioned Edwards multiple times. They asked him how he knew Becky and Nicole. Edwards' answer wasn't quite what cops were expecting.
I met Nicole in late September. We were talking about maybe having a threesome with her and her girlfriend.
Which girlfriend?
Whatever one she wanted to bring, I told her.
Okay.
It seemed Nicole Abu Sharif's love triangle with Rose Sodaro and Becky Klien had just added an unlikely fourth participant. Investigators asked Edwards to explain the wave of phone calls he'd made the night of the murder. According to Edwards, it was Nicole he was trying to reach, and the reason wasn't sex. It was drugs.
Nicole was involved with drugs, buying drugs, selling drugs. She'd get some prescription-type drugs, and also street drugs as well.
Drugs that, according to Robert Edwards, Nicole got from him. Drugs Edwards now claimed he was owed a cut of.
How did she end up owing you drugs?
She said she had a friend that wanted some, so I just gave her what I had. She said she'd pay me back when she could.
Was Becky's murder somehow related to Nicole's prescription drug habit? If so, was Robert Edwards the man behind the crime? Investigators asked Edwards where he was at 7:45 p.m., the approximate time of Becky's death. Edwards told them he was out getting his hair cut.
Police, of course, go to this place where he supposedly got the haircut, interviewed the person who was supposed to have cut his hair and other witnesses there who said there's no way he was there that night.
Police also ran a background check on Robert Edwards and discovered he drove the same kind of van that eyewitnesses in Villa Park had spotted in Nicole and Becky's driveway around the time of the murder. When cornered by cops, Edwards admitted he had been to Becky and Nicole's house that night.
Why were you there on Thursday? What was your purpose and intention?
To find out when I was going to get my drugs.
Investigators asked Robert Edwards point blank, did he kill Becky Klien? Edwards told them he didn't even know Becky was missing until recently, and he certainly had no idea how she wound up dead in the trunk of Nicole's car.
You're at the house, and you don't think that we're going to know that. You got this stuff all over the news, you got flyers being handed out, this and that, and you're at the house, and you don't say nothing. Why do you think that is?
Because I've done too many drugs.
There was a statement that he had made to the police that he was under the influence of drugs, and he was so messed up he doesn't remember anything that happened.
Detectives were skeptical.
You need to tell us what happened that night, and you need to get your story straight.
Robert Edwards might have been dazed and confused, but police knew exactly what they needed to do. They obtained a search warrant for Edwards' home and promptly tossed the place. But they found nothing that definitively tied him to the crime. With 3 possible suspects, no obvious motive, and little physical evidence linking any of them to the crime, investigators weren't much closer to charging someone with Becky's murder than the day they discovered her body. And now everyone in Chicago was wondering if the truth would ever come to light. To find out more about the dark side of a city, go to investigationdiscovery.com. When it comes to defending the good name of their neighborhood, nearly every Chicago resident seems willing to put up their dukes. But back in March of 2007, in the tidy suburb of Villa Park, events were unfolding that would take the city's oldest rivalry, white-collar Northsiders versus working-class Southsiders, to a whole new level. Police had recently placed 3 individuals at Becky Klien's house the night of her murder. Becky's girlfriend, Nicole Abu Sharif, Nicole's lover, Rose Sadaro, and Nicole's drug buddy, Robert Edwards. Edwards' foggy memory and his phony alibi had landed him next to Nicole on investigators' list of prime suspects. That is, until the DuPage County Crime Lab finished analyzing the fingerprint evidence collected at the scene and found no evidence connecting Robert Edwards to any of the duct tape or plastic bags used to suffocate Becky. Nor did the fingerprint evidence place Robert Edwards even in the vicinity of the '66 Mustang. However, Becky's girlfriend, Nicole, was a different story.
Nicole's fingerprints were found on the trunk of the Mustang.
There were also fingerprints that were found to belong to Nicole on the duct tape that was used to fasten the bags around Becky Klien's body.
Detectives also discovered a receipt for duct tape. Duct tape that was a match for the kind used to bind and gag Becky. Duct tape that was purchased by Nicole at a nearby drugstore at 7:34 p.m., 11 minutes before Becky's death.
Nicole had gone a few blocks away to the Walgreens, was able to buy this roll of duct tape. So we had this roll of duct tape that really ended up being the murder weapon.
Both the fingerprint evidence and the timestamp on the receipt suggested Nicole had murdered Becky shortly after Becky's sister left the house. But what about the timeline for the rest of the evening? Rose Sadaro's statement placed Nicole at a bar and grill on the south side at 9:09. And phone records indicated that from 8:20 to 8:35, Nicole was at home talking to Rose. Coupled with Becky's estimated time of death, Nicole would have had to drive to the store, purchase duct tape, drive home, bind and gag Becky, throw her in the trunk, change clothes, make a 15-minute phone call to Rose Sadaro, then drive across town to a crowded South Side bar, all in about 90 minutes.
If you look at the state of her body and how she was in that trunk and the amount of tape that was on her, she wouldn't have had time to do this.
Perhaps, but that didn't stop authorities from charging Nicole with first-degree murder. The arrest made news all across Chicagoland. Back in the northern and western suburbs, Becky's family was having a hard time believing that the love of her life was the same person now charged with snuffing it out.
I know at least in my family, we were slapped clear out of the blue when this happened. There was no indication to me whatsoever that anything was awry.
But Nicole's friends and family believed Robert Edwards should have been the one charged with murder, not Nicole. After all, he was the one with the shoddy alibi, and Edwards had even admitted that he'd gone to the house that night to recoup some of the drugs he'd recently dealt Nicole. Eventually, Edwards was charged and convicted, but not of murder, of the far lesser charge of obstruction of justice, which meant that even though his own testimony placed him at the crime scene, he was immune from any possible murder charges.
They really couldn't prove that he had helped her do anything. They really felt that there was nothing they could pin on him any further than that.
He was there when it happened. Edwards was there when Becky was killed. Nobody disputes that, okay? Edwards can pick up a 150-pound girl. It just doesn't make sense.
With so much mystery still surrounding the case, nearly everyone in Chicago had an opinion about it. Like always, the lines were largely drawn between North and South.
Internet message boards before the trial were full of Nicole's friends claiming that she was a wonderful person, could never do this. There were an equal number of people who knew and loved Becky who were claiming that they were not surprised that this happened at all. So it brought up a lot of emotions.
Complicating matters even further was the apparent absence of motive. Nicole seemed to lack any credible reason to murder her partner of 8 years. Until investigators with the DA's office revealed that they had unearthed a pair of life insurance policies belonging to Becky Klien. Policies that totaled upwards of $400,000. Policies for which Nicole was the primary beneficiary.
$500,000, that's pretty good motive. It's as old as any I can think of.
It all seemed to make sense. But would a jury buy it? On April 22, 2009, the State versus Nicole Abu Sharif got underway. Prosecutors opened their case by painting a picture of what they believed happened the night Becky was murdered, a picture that featured Nicole as the crime's sole perpetrator.
She was able to get Becky in the garage. She was able to get Becky's hands duct tape, feet duct tape, put a plastic shopping type bag over her head so that Becky would suffocate, put her in the trunk, and then shortly after that, she goes and starts partying.
According to prosecutors, the morning after the murder, Nicole drove Becky's van down the street and staged it to look like she'd been abducted. Prosecutors claimed it was just one of many devious moves Nicole had made in recent months. To support that assertion, they called Nicole's other lover, Rose Sodaro, to the stand.
They called me their star witness. I knew I had to rise to the occasion. I knew that I knew things that other people were unaware of.
Specifically, Rose told the court about how Nicole had created a phony online persona, then used it to trick Rose into falling for her.
I think the MySpace testimony, Nicole's efforts to woo Rose Sodaro by constructing elaborate false identities, was particularly compelling and speaks to the prosecution's contention that Nicole knew exactly what she was doing.
She stole my innocence. She took everything that I was and preyed on that.
Rose Sodaro's testimony was powerful, as were the now infamous life insurance policies. Prosecutors also pointed out the fingerprint evidence, which they believed proved once and for all that Nicole had acted alone. But according to the defense, the physical evidence was one of the weakest links in the state's case.
Her prints were on the bag, her prints were on the tape, her DNA was on the bandanas. But, I mean, this is her house.
If I go in your garage and grab your duct tape out of your garage, are your fingerprints gonna be on it? Absolutely.
Nicole's attorneys also took aim at what they believed was the most glaring hole in the state's case, the timeline.
The timing of it is very hard to believe that she could do that. I mean, forget about motive, forget about everything else, just look at the time.
Not only that, the defense argued that Nicole's back injury made it physically impossible for her to have committed the crime.
If you can't lift 25 pounds, how are you going to lift 168 pounds of just dead weight? And then try to cram it into a small Mustang trunk.
It was a compelling argument. And on Friday, May 1st, the defense called one last witness to the stand to hammer the point home. The one everybody in the courtroom had been waiting to see. Nicole Abu Sharif.
She wanted to tell her story, and she stated that she had nothing to do with the murder, and she wanted to come out and tell the jury and let them get to know her and know that she really didn't do it.
But after all the lies Nicole had been caught in, would the jury believe her? On May 5th, they found Nicole Abu Sharif guilty of first-degree murder. The presiding judge sentenced Nicole to 50 years in prison.
She's going to be away a long time and will not have the opportunity to do this to anyone else, to hurt anyone else like she hurt Becky.
Though Becky's family was pleased with the verdict, they're still unsure exactly what happened the night she died. Nor do they fully understand how Nicole could commit this crime.
Physically, we can't figure out how she herself could have even gotten Becky into the trunk. We have no idea. Nobody was ever really able to tell us that answer.
It's that shadow of doubt that keeps Nicole's supporters on the South Side stewing over the verdict.
If you walk down the street and ask anyone on the South Side, oh, she's still in there? That Edwards guy, why is he out? Everybody knows. The only people who don't is the jury and the prosecutor. Everybody else knows.
But whether they hail from the north side or the south, Villa Park or Joliet, there's one thing everyone in Chicagoland can agree on. Crime can strike anywhere in the Windy City, even in the wealthiest of suburban enclaves, even in Villa Park.
Somebody who could take somebody's life like that shouldn't do anything wrong to her. It's just disgusting. It makes me sick.
Becky made the world a better place just by being in it. She was just a selfless, amazing person that would do anything for anybody. And the impact she left on the lives of the people who knew her was tremendous.